welcome to this week's Coaches Preview Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Qualls. We have two of the finest football coaches that the WCS Sports Conference has to offer this week. Matt Daniels, Ron Crawford, head coaches of Ravenwood and Brentwood for this week. This is probably my favorite week of all. We have all these rivalries, nothing against the other ones. This one has a little different feel to it. The Battle of the Woods is tonight at 7 o'clock. Ravenwood will be hosting. Coach Daniels, welcome to the show. You are a rookie, as in Coach Crawford is a seasoned veteran, right?
One way to say being old, that's right.
One thing that's cool this week is one of the things that y'all do as a tradition is go to the Rotary Club. I think that's pretty neat. Speak on that real quick, Coach Crawford, because I know that you've done this numerous times.
Yeah, the Breakfast Rotary in Brentwood invites the coaches on Wednesday morning, and we just have an opportunity, I guess, to sell our programs a little bit, to make our probably our supporters or community members understand that the two teams handle everything really, really well, and it's the fans and the students that create the excitement, I guess you'd want to say. But I think it's a good opportunity for a coach and myself to let people know it's a game, and it's important, and we want it to be important, but most of all, we appreciate the community event it's become, how big it is. We both need it, that check every year in our athletic departments, and so it's just an opportunity for both of us to brag on our schools, brag on our kids, and brag on our coaches.
Coach Daniels, you get any jabs in the Rotary Club meeting there on Coach Crawford at all?
No, it's really cool to hear the mutual respect that goes on between both programs, and in the end, it is a game, and these are high school kids, and to be able to promote the event for what it is and have everybody enjoy it, including the community members, is a really cool experience.
Coach Daniels, you're in your second year at Ravenwood. Let the people know a little bit about yourself that may or may not know about you.
This Middle Tennessee football, so my goal in moving to the Nashville area was to experience what I experienced in high school in Texas. And I'll tell you what, people in Middle Tennessee are doing it right, and we're getting there. It's not quite Texas high school football.
The quantity of people may not be there, but the quality.
The quality is, and it's, Williamson County right here in the heart of it all it's pretty special to see what high school football in Middle Tennessee is doing, and then for both of our programs to be a big part of that and to be at the center of it's really fun.
Well, you came in with a bang. Ravenwood is currently the reigning 6A champions. You won that in your first year. So far this year, you've beat Centennial 35-28, Siegel 21-17, Franklin 24-20, Page 35-7. I am going to say this. I think it's an advantage of playing those teams early. You got those big region games. You look at the Centennial game, the Franklin game, you get those early out of the way. I think if you play Franklin towards the end of the year, it's going to have a different feel. Don't you agree with that? Coach Webb, looks like they're trending upward right now for Franklin.
I mean, I think they got a good football team. Both the games that we played against them went right down the wire, and it could have gone either way in our game. And I think Coach would say the same thing. And it's just we're all pretty close, I think, this year. I think that's the whole thing, is that if anybody gets ahead of themselves, they're making a huge mistake, because there's some quality teams, and it's going to come down to probably week 10 to determine this thing.
Ravenwood 4-0, 2-0 in region play. Currently sits number 4 in the polls. Brentwood 3-1, 2-0. Currently sits number 12 in the polls. I know you put zero stock in that, but let's talk about that for a minute. The only blip on the radar for you guys is a very highly contested, close game with Cane Ridge. Let's talk about that for just a minute. It came down to the wire, 27-24. Talk about that game for just a moment, because Cane Ridge is a name that everybody knows in the Mid-State. Outside of our group in Williamson County, in Rutherford, Cane Ridge is that team, right? So.
I mean, they're extremely talented. Coach and I talked this Wednesday morning about, you're going to go back through them. Whoever comes out of our league, we feel like will play Cane Ridge, and extremely talented, and they're really put together well. They know what they're doing. Those two backs are dynamic. There's things when we watched it, we left there feeling like, man, our kids played hard, and we did. But you're supposed to play hard, right, Coach? We played hard, but we didn't play very smart. We made too many mistakes to beat a really good football team, and would love to play them again because it would mean it's a huge atmosphere and we've survived
That would be
several rounds.
That could potentially be in the semis. Is that right? That's where you
No,
played them last year.
it would be quarter. They played them in the quarters last year. We played them in the second
Well,
round.
if you think about it, last year you beat them in the regular season. They put you out. Now it's going to potentially be reversed. Could you, as a coach, do you think about these things when it comes down to if you play them again that you can use that as a motivational tool? They put us out, or is that something I'm just looking way too much deep in the weeds on?
It's last year's team.
No, I'm talking about this year, though.
We had a chance at them this year once, and we'll have to earn a chance at them
Sure.
again, and they'll have to win enough games to get there again. So I think it's just too far in the future to even, we got Ravenwood tonight, and much past that.
This wouldn't be the coach's
it's
preview
not-
show
it's
without
not.
stock coach answers. All right, so
That's the reality.
so far, let's talk about your record. 17-14, you beat Franklin in week 1. That was a big game, highly contested. A lot of people there. It's the granddaddy of them all, as we like to call it, with the two oldest schools. Lost to Cane Ridge in week 2. Beat Dixon 56-7. Stewart's Creek 45-33 last week. Things are rolling for you. This game has. We talked about this on Monday on the show. Tate and I did. This game has so much to offer, right? Take Battle of the Woods out of it because usually you can, even if y'all were 0 for going in this game, everybody's going to come to it. But you're both ranked in the polls. You've got great skill players. You've got hard-hitting defenses. And what we've talked about arguably is the two best receiving corps around. I mean, your skill players right now are really, really high-level players. Let's start right there. Coach Daniels talking about your receiving group, centered around Andrew Mason and the kind of the year that he's had thus far. Talk about those guys for just a minute.
Yeah, it's one of those things we talked about last year with our offense. It's difficult to, we've got a good quarterback that knows how to get it to different playmakers, but when you've got so many playmakers, the guys have to be unselfish and know that there might be a game or two that goes by where they've got 1 or 2 catches, but then of course there's a night like Franklin where Andrew Mason shows up big with over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So the guys have to be unselfish first of all. And, a quarterback play has to understand that the best thing to do when you've got skill guys like we do and like Brentwood does is get them the ball early and often and let them do the work. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. And I know with young quarterbacks, us with a junior in Garcia and Brentwood with Granzow as a sophomore, that's the best message we can give as coaches is say, get the ball out of your hands quickly, get it to the guys that know how to make plays. And I think you'll see both offenses trying to do that tonight.
Coach Crawford, you look at your receiving corps. Avery Williams, big-bodied, fast player. Then you've got Carter McKechnie, who's done a really good job this far. Walker Merrill, Chase Bishop. You've got the speed, the size on your receiving corps. Talk about your group for just a moment. Cade Granzow, he mentioned, sophomore quarterback coming in. He's bridged the gap pretty quick. He didn't have much time. I mean, in your first game at the start, coming behind, filling in the shoes for your quarterback from last year, that's you got to be on a short learning curve.
Well, I think I'll agree with exactly what Coach says. Is that we have to for our quarterbacks, and obviously Garcia has more experience and it's a different skill set than Cade. They have to take the reads that they're given, and I think with experience comes the ability to come off. Here's first. Here's your second option. And where young quarterbacks sometimes first option's not there, they just see stuff. So I think growing him to where he can slow the game down and see beyond his first progression, I think is our goal with him. And then not applying too much pressure to him, letting him have a little bit of freedom and play within our system and keeping our skill guys, like Coach Daniel said, I smiled when he said it, of them understanding that we, it's hard we can't go tell our quarterback, hey, throw it to him this play because he may not be there. So
right.
I think it's just development of the entire offense helps develop that quarterback. And the more and more they get to, game reps are invaluable. Sometimes they're painful because it doesn't work out like you want them to. And sometimes, those lessons are great lessons and you see them grow throughout the year.
What are some telltale signs, football 101 here? When you're talking about progressions, the quarterback backs up, right? He's got the ball, snap. They're running the routes. What's the first telltale sign that option 1 is out?
We're not a big coverage read team. So we're more of if the kid's open in grass, get him the ball. So we're more of a space thing, but yes, we do have a progression. The first progression, he's covered. Second progression, go there. Last year with an experienced quarterback, we had the ability to go to third and fourth progression. Right now, we're kind of coaching through 1 and 2, hoping that 3 and 4 come. And then if you don't watch, a coach can speak to this, but you'll find yourself calling plays where you want them to have success early. And you want to get your guys touches early because you want them involved in the game. So I think, the thing you got to do when it gets tough and when it gets in tight games, because we've both played them this fall, there's nothing like that, because then it goes out, who needs the ball of, hey, this play we think will work versus whatever we're expecting. So I think it becomes back to you have to operate your offense in the most efficient way possible to give your young quarterback the best chance to be successful. So that is football 101, but I think we put a lot on them. Both of us have RPOs in our offenses, and you hope that takes pressure off. But when you have an RPO offense, if your quarterback makes a mistake, you have to be careful because we built it that way. So if they feel like they saw something, they have to be able to operate freely in order for that type of system to work.
Speaking of freely, Coach Daniels has a quarterback that weighs every bit of 145 pounds, Doug Flutie-esque, if you will. It's kind of hard. I know you got set calls. I know you're looking at progression too, but can you cuff them too much sometimes to take them away from their strong suit? Which, in Garcia's standpoint, is he likes to get out of that pocket. He likes to bootleg out and look for those plays to become a playmaker, which at the same token can also hurt you in situations too, right?
Absolutely. It certainly makes offensive line work a little bit harder and kind of work blindly, So that when plays break down or whether it's design rollout, whatever you're dealing with, when you got a quarterback that likes to be creative and kind of do stuff on the fly, it can have positive impacts and negative impacts. But you're right about Brian. I think that given his size, and he does a very good job of one, being creative in the middle of a play when it breaks down and making something happen. Probably 3 or 4 long touchdowns we've scored from him scrambling and finding, receivers doing their part, doing the scramble drill, getting open. But yes, as we kind of morph into the middle of the season and figure out what works for us, getting Brian on the edge and design sprint outs, rollouts, that can only be good for our team because he sees a little bit better out there, and we got some athletes that, crossing routes, running open in space across the defense that's always a challenge for the defense to cover routes like that. So as we see where this thing goes and develops in terms of our offense, that's certainly something that's kind of number one on our radar, is getting him outside.
It's one of those things, he's got that it factor. This dude is a competitor. He knows how to win. You can hit him as hard as you want. He's going to get up for the next play. I know you love players like that as well. But, when you start people saying, well, why didn't you get any looks? He doesn't pass that eye test per se, but that doesn't define a player. You look at this past weekend, the Independence quarterback that broke all the records on the 15-0 team, Andrew Bunch, steps in at Nebraska. You want to talk about a win-win situation. Same way, Murray State stood beside the coach. What are you looking at? Looking at his feet, great feet. What about his arm? Great. Watching his read progressions, great. Just ain't big enough. Really? Don't even take a look at him. Don't even offer. He has to go to JUCO out on the West Coast. Gets on with Nebraska. Quarterback gets hurt. Guess who steps in? There's just that factor among those kids that moxie that they always like to talk about, the intangibles that regardless of size, they have it. I feel like your quarterback in Brian Garcia did it. He completed 11 of 19 for 188, 3 touchdowns in the 35-7 win over Page. Talk about it for just a minute, that Page game. That's always an interesting matchup. Big guy playing a smaller guy, but, Page came in undefeated.
Absolutely, and they had some injuries that they were dealing with, and being a non-region game, we added a 90-minute rain delay onto that. Here we are thinking that home sweet home after the 3-game, road trip that we were going to get just a normal game and have some home cooking, but then of course we have that rain delay, and now we've got Battle of the Woods.
I hope the weather's not a factor tonight. It could be, right? I mean, it's looking like it could be.
I think we'll be okay. I think Florence is going to stay away. Unfortunately for the Carolinas, but fortunately for us, I think we might have a dry Friday night. But Page is a good football team. They played some pretty solid defense early on. We turned the ball over a couple times in the red zone. Felt like that could have been a larger margin of victory for us, but always got to be happy with a, multi-touchdown win against an undefeated team. Another kind of budding rivalry with the Williamson County team. So Coach Rathbone's got some good stuff going there with Page over the last couple of years, and I'm sure they're going to make some noise in their region in 5A and make a run in the playoffs. So we felt good about that.
Coach Crawford, Cade Granzel goes for 12 for 19, 145 yards, 1 touchdown. We talked about that receiving core. McKechnie, 6 catches, 62 yards. Williams, 4 catches, 47. Walker Merrill, 2 catches. Chase Bishop, 3 catches. It's just like you're spreading the ball out in that 45-33 win over Stewart's Creek. Talk about that victory for just a minute, please.
Well, it's one of those games that you don't want to steal your kids' joy because the ultimate goal is to win. And we didn't feel like we were very focused and played very well during that game. Frustrated at halftime, probably. You can make all kinds of excuses about looking ahead, all that type of thing that you want to make. But, we've got
so that kind of blows your
one game per Friday, and you better make the most of it. So disappointed in the way we played. Probably more disappointed in the job I did preparing them, because obviously we weren't very ready to play. We didn't operate very efficiently in offensively or defensively early. But we did respond by getting behind, coming back from behind. We've been able to do that twice now. So you hope when you get adversity like that it'll show up at some point in a big game. We were the better team, and we allowed them to hang around. And I'm not going to say that they didn't do some good things, because I think you got to give your opponent credit. We gave them some confidence, and again, you can't do over. That's why you need to prepare like it's the most important thing each week, and I felt like I didn't prepare our guys good enough last week. However, we got the win, and I think this week you don't really have to say anything. You just, it's everybody knows what it is, and all the kids know each other. And so that's what makes these kind of Fridays a lot of fun.
Well, I was going to rib you for just a minute talking about our coach speak a while ago, saying we're focused on tonight's game. We can't look in the future. But, it's really difficult to harness those kids and not look to this week. Probably since week 1. You talked about comeback. Speaking of comeback, you guys have been the comeback kids. Outside of the Page game, you've had to come from behind to get the win in the first 3 games, basically. And, talk about that for just a moment. It's not something you want. It's not something you design. But at the same time, I noticed at the Franklin game, nobody ever got rattled. I think I kind of compare it to Greg Glass's Independence basketball team with Grayson Murphy. You've seen those teams play. You remember Grayson. Not at any single time in the game, regardless of the score, did they ever think they were going to lose. That's pretty good. Now, it can bite you, but at the same time, and I think in this game you would agree with me, you can't get behind these guys and expect to come back.
Yep. And you can't say that about too many teams. Like you said, we felt comfortable in all these games, and I honestly can't point to a single factor that says why we felt comfortable and why we never thought at any point that we were going to lose those ball games, because we played some pretty quality opponents, guys who had some emotional advantages, some early special teams disasters, and like you said, we were able to bounce back from that. That's not going to be the case tonight if we fall behind early against a really quality team like Brentwood. That makes that hill much higher to climb. So what I can guarantee is if we do get in that situation, the kids are going to claw and fight as best they can. And hope that the outcome would be similar to what's happened early in the season. But definitely proud of the young team being resilient like they have been, because I do think that's going to help us as we push towards the playoffs later in the year.
Coach Crawford, we mentioned your receivers. The ground game's been really efficient for you as well. Jordan Nicholas playing really good football, running the ball for you, 17 carries at 95 yards.
Yeah, Jordan's the guy that went from 170 last year to about 188 this year, and had an outstanding track season as well. So he was one of those guys that through track and continued to develop in the weight room, that he actually got stronger, bigger, and faster during the spring. And you could see him in track looking more powerful and everything while he was putting on great quality weight. So I don't know if I've ever been around a better kid than him. Probably speaks more to the fact than what he's done in the weight room and on the track and on the field. Is he's one of those guys that's always got a smile on his face, competes very, very hard. Winning's important to him, but he understands that number one thing is to compete to the best of your ability, and he always seems to answer the bell for us and bounces back from mistakes and disappointments very, very well, which is, I think, a great quality that his parents have built into him. And we had him and Carter back, and Carter now has kind of become our Mason. He's, not only can we get it to him in the air, but also hand it to him as well. So I think having a multi-purpose guy like that, like they have and we have, in addition to that, is very important.
On the ground side of Ravenwood, you had 260 total yards on the ground, 44 attempts. Tony Rice led the way, 19 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown. Talk about your running game.
Running game's been really solid this year. I think a lot of that has to do with some of the veteran offensive line guys we got back. Tony Rice has done a heck of a job stepping in kind of as the default starter, but he's earned everything that he's gotten. He's a tough runner. He's fun to watch. He had a play against Page the other night where he was stacked up on the goal line, shoved a couple guys off of him, and walked his way into the end zone. So it's pretty cool what he's done. He's doing that. Jordan Smith, who was kind of an emerging running back last year, rushed for almost 1,000 yards as a sophomore. We've actually had to move him to the defensive side of the ball at safety. Big hitter at safety. He also gets about 5 or 6 carries a game. That's a nice changeup. We had an injury actually early on to our starter, William Bain. He's a senior captain, so we've been missing him in the backfield, and can't wait to get him back because then all of a sudden we got a 3-headed monster in the next couple of weeks. So looking forward to that.
Let's talk about the history of this event. I'm just going to go 5 years back because that's how long I've been here. You've been here for how long?
4.
4, but your first stint was for how long?
10.
10. So you've been here 4, you've been here 2. Last 5 years, do y'all realize this game has not been close but one time in the last 5 years? It's
hard to believe.
A 21-point average winning margin, with the exception of one game, which was the 31-23 game last year. Ravenwood has won 3 of the last 4. Overall point total, 110 to 88 in Ravenwood's favor right now. So it's close, but the games themselves have been lopsided one way or the other, which is interesting. When was it? 2 years ago we had the Tsunami halftime and had to come back and play it later. That's one of those strange deals where it was a tale of 2 completely different halves. I believe y'all were leading at halftime, and then Ravenwood ended up winning that game in the second half.
No.
Or was it? Do I have it backwards?
Yeah, you got it
I have it backwards. I apologize. Ravenwood was leading, and Brentwood ended up winning that game really by a large margin. But talk about inside your buildings. Both of you do phenomenal jobs, not only as a coach, but as a mentor and as a PR guy and a marketing person and a supporter of the other programs that are not football related. Y'all do a really good job. You have a pulse on your schools. Talk about what this game tonight does for your school in general, your student body and your communities. I know we talked about it earlier, but really inside the school building, it carries different weight.
It does, yeah, and I think that the biggest thing for football in general, but then when you have a rivalry like this early in the season, it kind of sets the tone for the school year, for the academics, for the other sports, and I think that our staff understands that. I think that our kids understand that. The student body understands that. The administration understands that. So the support is kind of all-encompassing. And then when you add a rivalry week like this, win or lose, 10, 12,000 people out there cheering on, your team in this tight-knit community, that can only do positive things. Again, win or lose for the school. Talked about the gate that the school gets to get from that, and that's just so beneficial for the athletic program and the entire school.
When you walk out of that tunnel, I mean, that feeling, right? I know you get it every game, but this game, it has a little bit different to it. I mean, it's pretty special. It's why I always tell my wife it was the drug of choice for me. When you walk out there, that pregame stuff and that feeling that you have, that's what it's about. I mean, talk about when you walk out, not at Ravenwood specifically.
The student bodies in our county, I think, do a great job of supporting our programs. I mean, their student body's awesome. They've done some great things, and I've had the opportunity to thank our student body in several opportunities this year when they came up at the end of the game, And so they're the kids. They can provide the great atmosphere. They pick at each other. You know, our folks don't. It's the student bodies, and it'll be fun warming up with a crowd. I think that's the coolest thing is you get to come out and warm up with a crowd, and you know, their fans hollering at us, our fans hollering at them. So that makes it more fun, and kind of, you know, you don't want to win it in warm-ups, getting out there and getting all jacked up. So you got to be a little bit careful to know that we can't play them until we kick off. So, but yeah, I think all of our schools here, and in particular this one, no doubt, man. It's one everybody comes to that if they don't come to another one, they come to this one. So, you know, $7, baby.
We like to add fuel to the fire because obviously WCS game day is going to be there. So we try to ramp them up to a feverish pitch, as you know. So you better have thick skin when you come do that quick interview with us Friday night because they're going to be booing you just like they did him. He received the loudest boos I've ever heard on game day last year.
That's one of my greatest memories.
I hope I can rival that tonight. When I come over, I'll get some tips from you, Tim.
30 seconds. Keys to winning tonight.
It's as simple as whoever makes the least amount of mistakes. Turnovers are, you know, we've been able to overcome some turnovers. Tonight, I don't think we, you know, if you make significant mistakes and leave the ball out there, I think the team that minimizes mistakes and turnovers is going to come out on top.
Coach is exactly right. I think for us, then it becomes containing Garcia. We have tremendous respect for him. And their receiving core as well. With that, we need to maintain possessions of the football and force them to drive the ball. Don't give them any explosive plays because they've really done a good job with their explosive plays this year.
Well, and the first time in the 5 years I've been here, the pundits have this as a pick'em game. So I know that weighs heavily on your thoughts.
Name those pundits.
I better not. I've got to keep
an exact list of the pundits.
And they've been close. I've got to keep them under wraps. I don't want anybody to know who they are. But Tank Starr, look for him tonight. Defensive touchdown last week. Thought that was interesting. Could that come into play? Defensive side of the ball. For you guys, I think offensive, you know, is going to be the key. Defense for you guys, this thing's going to be close. It's going to be fun. Thank you so much for joining us. Battle of the Woods tonight, 7 o'clock at Ravenwood. Thank you for joining us for this week's Coaches Preview Show. We'll see you next time.